Hey everyone, and welcome back to Remedy Reads. I'm super excited to be here with a kind of late anticipated reads for 2021 video. So basically in this video I'll be talking about all of the books that I'm excited to read in the future and I probably have already pre-ordered for this year. A lot of the books that are coming out in the fall have not been on my radar. So this is for basically the first half of the year, and I'll probably do a part 2 later in the year talking about the fall and winter books coming out. But I'm really excited to talk about this. I think this is the best part of being a booktuber, is just talking about what you're really excited to read. So let's get to the bookish goodness. Okay, first we need to take care of some business. Y'all look at this freaking amazing sweatshirt. Okay, I know it's not, it's great. This is fantastic. I got this sweatshirt from Levi's like a couple years ago. No, actually a year ago. And I couldn't wear it because I got pregnant and it couldn't fit. And then the next year we had the panoramic, so there was nowhere to go with it. So I'm sharing the joy with y'all. It's fantastic. It's great. Anyway, moving on. This is going to be a long video without my dance party. So let's get to the books. Okay, all of these books I'm just going to stick up here in the corner because obviously I don't have them yet. Or if they have already come out, they have not arrived at my doorstep. I'm looking at you, USPS. Okay. These are not in calendar order, so I'm sorry for that ahead of time. I just didn't care to do it, to be quite honest with you. I didn't think it mattered. So anyway, let's get into the list. The first one is actually a recommendation that I got from the Bookish Realm channel. It's A Master of Gin by P. Djeli Clark. So this writer has 2 previous novels in this series. I do not believe that they're connected in such a way that you have to read the first 2 to read the third. I did quite a bit of digging because I really didn't find that I was interested in the first 2, the plots of the first 2, but this one I was really interested in. Basically, this is the 3rd installment in what is kind of a steampunk fantasy novel. This is an adult novel. It's based in Cairo. And our main character is Fatma El Sha'arawi. Could be saying that wrong, did my best. And this Fatma is investigating a high-profile murder, and alchemy and magic are sprinkled in this story. I'm just really interested in his writing. He's won quite a few awards. He is well known, and I believe he is a West Indian author. I could be wrong, but I believe that Read Caribbean, that hashtag is, I also saw P. Djeli Clark on there, so I could be wrong, but very excited to read that. And by the way, because this is going to be 30 books long, and I don't necessarily want to do a second video, I'm going to keep the summarizations pretty short and sweet. The next is She Who Became the Sun. This is another fantasy. I believe it's an adult fantasy by Shelley Parker Chan. And this comes out July 20th. It's a queer retelling of the rulers of the Ming Dynasty, and it features a girl or a woman who takes up the mantle of her brother as he is unable to rule in the way that it was anticipated. So I don't like to know too much about the books before I go into them because I feel like that ruins a little bit of the magic for me. So these are kind of very surface level summaries. So the next book might already be out by the time this video goes up. It comes out January 19th. It's Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. Please let me know if I'm saying that wrong. I researched it. I think that's how you say it. This is a very short novelization, kind of sci-fi fantasy about a female lead who somehow becomes the daughter of death. very cool, and I'm just really excited to see like where that story goes and what that means. I believe that this book could be connected to another one of Okorafor's series, but again, I am not entirely sure. This is my first book by her, so I'm really excited to read that. The next one is highly anticipated for me. I fell in love with Samantha Shannon with her series The Bone Season. I actually liked that series more than The Priory of the Orange Tree, and this is the 4th installment in that series that I've been waiting forever for. It's called The Mask Falling, and I'm just excited to read it and continue the story. I don't know if this is the last one, and I was honestly too scared to look that up because I really like this story. It is basically about a dystopian society in which some in the society are gifted with like dream walking or other kinds of gifts, and because of that they are oppressed and put in the position where they either have to hide or become enslaved or things like that. So basically the whole series is walking out what it looks like for them to be liberated and equal citizens. The next book is For the Wolf. It is the first in the Wilderwood series by Hannah Witten. As soon as I saw it say that it was an atmospheric fantasy, I was like, okay, done. I love fairy tale atmospheric stories. You can pretty much get me to read anything that's described that way. Not a huge fan of like all fairy tale retellings, but this one got me. So it's a second daughter who is supposed to be sacrificed to the wolf in the woods, and what she decides to do about that and what she discovers on her way to being sacrificed, I believe. Very excited. June 15th is the release date for that one. Then Tasha Suri's, she has 2 other books that I have read that I've read one of them and I want to read the second one. Very interesting. I am intrigued by her writing. She's honestly not my favorite author in the adult fantasy realm, but I find her books to be pleasant and very readable, and I get really involved in the characters' dynamic and growth and discovery of themselves. So I think that's the part, the characterization is my jam. But this is a new series by her, the Burning Kingdom series. This book is called The Jasmine Throne, and it's inspired by the history and epics of India, which I have found that the history and epics of India are incredibly interesting to me. They're something that I continually find myself drawn to in literature. I have several on my shelf that I need to read, so I probably shouldn't be buying anymore, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm excited about that one. Then there's Son of the Storm by Suyi Davies Okungbawa. This is a story about Denso, who is a warrior, I believe, in this fantasy, and he becomes disillusioned because life is just like pretty boring and monotonous, and he's just not really desiring to live the life that he's been living. Well, along comes this warrior from the Nameless Islands that are islands that are not supposed to exist. They're supposed to be fantastical myths, and all of a sudden there's someone who is representative of this myth. And so this is basically his journey into understanding where the truth lies and what's the misunderstanding or hidden secret of these islands. So I'm very excited about that. This next one, super pumped. Helen Wecker wrote The Golem and the Jinni, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure, but it took me a while to finally sit down and read it. When I read it, I just fell in love with the prose. I believe this is like magical realism, urban fantasy, and a little bit of historical fiction. I don't really know how you characterize it, but basically these 2 magical creatures are trying to live a normal human life in New York, and the setting keeps switching between New York and the Middle East to tell their whole story. It's very interesting. Loved the first book. The sequel is coming out. It's called The Hidden Place, and that comes out on June 8th. Highly recommend. I just loved falling in love with that book. The next one has a little bit of a funny story. So the next one is Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson, which happens to be me, but I did not write this book. So the funny story is that like in my first I don't know, year and a half on Instagram officially as Renee Watson, I would get tagged in pretty much anything the author Renee Watson was doing because they thought I was her. And it's gotten to the point where like I have like a saved message. It doesn't happen too much anymore, but I have a saved message that I comment and say like, hey, I think you're looking for the author. I'm not the author. And I remove the tag. But this is my first work from her that I feel like I can very, very closely relate to, in that this is an experience that I had growing up. Is our main character, she meets a man that she's really interested in, and he's interested in doing things that are kind of outside of her realm of being. Like, she just doesn't find that she's doing those things very often. And so in order to be someone who he could be interested in, she finds that she changes herself or lies about what she loves or what she does to endear herself to him. I think this is incredibly important in our society, where we talk about how women find their identities and what they find that's important to them. I'm very excited about this book. I'm also excited because there's a lot of body positivity, and both of these topics are things that I could have used a sounding board on or literature on when I was young, and it probably would have changed my life and helped me avoid a lot of mistakes that I made. So really excited about this book from Renee Watson. That one comes out on February 2nd, so we don't have to wait much longer. Okay, so we're, I think, halfway through, guys, maybe a little less than that. The next novel is by Kazuo Ishiguro. I read for the first time one of his novels this year, Never Let Me Go. Absolutely heartbreaking. Just, oh my gosh, I was in a very contemplative mood in January, and it fit the bill. I just love psychological fiction. Fantastic. So this new release is Clara and the Sun, and basically Clara is an AI, so an artificial intelligence who is basically observing human behavior in, I believe, a bookshop. And it is very, what I'm hearing is it's very much of a passive engagement with the human experience. Very excited about that. I mean, that is just up my wheelhouse, and I think it's gonna be amazing. I absolutely love his work now. I cannot wait to get into more. That comes out March 2nd. And then there's Witches Steeped in Gold on April 20th. So this one is by Sianen Smart. I believe it's how you say her name. The reason I'm so excited about this is one of my resolutions or reading goals this year is to read more West Indian literature. And this is a Jamaican inspired fiction. Basically, it's two sisters who are both witches, and they've always been on the other side of, I guess I should say they've always been kind of enemies, in that they don't agree on something, a particular topic. I don't want to know too much about this because I feel like this is a shorter novel, and I want to go into it with not a lot of knowledge and just be wowed by the experience. I'm very excited for it. The cover is amazing. I'm a sucker for good covers, and so I hope that this lives up to the hype. I really would be heartbroken if it didn't. The next release is Love in Color, Mythical Tales from Around the World Retold by Bolu Babalola. This comes out April 13th, and it is exactly what the title says. Basically, it takes these mythical folk tales from around the world about love, and it retells them. And I know this is an author, a Black author, if I'm not incorrect. I could be wrong, but this is a international author, actually, so I guess it may not be a Black author, but this author does take these folk tales about love and just retells them, and I believe brings diversity in the picture. I'm just very excited about this book. I think this book is going to be in my top books of 2021. Could be wrong, but I obviously have a lot of hope in this author. Then there is this wonderful contemporary adult romance from Jasmine Guillory called While We Were Dating, releasing on the 13th of July. Let me tell you, I live pretty close to the beach, and we couldn't go last year for panoramic reasons. But my favorite thing to do is to take a feel-good rom-com to the beach, and Jasmine Guillory is one of my all-time favorite romance writers ever. I don't read a ton of romance, but when I do, they are typically sequels or books put out by authors that are just my jam, that I just love reading. So the next release coming out on September 28th is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a new series by Stephanie. Stephanie Garber wrote Caraval in that series. Really loved it. It was really fun and fluffy, but also a little dark, magical. I just really enjoyed that series. I think it was one of the series that I saw most people, if not outright enjoy it and love, they did enjoy the experience and read the entire series. So I'm really excited for her for this new series. It doesn't have a full description yet. It doesn't even have cover art. I just pre-ordered it because I believe in her. So I put a lot of hope behind that. Hopefully the description will be something that I love, but we'll see. I'll keep you updated on that. And then the next one is the third in a trilogy, I believe. It's a paranormal romance. It's called The Crown of Gilded Bones. This particular series got a lot of varied reception, so a lot of romance. Booktubers or people who feature romance greatly on their channel didn't find that this lived up to what it should have been, that it wasn't written as well as it should have been. There were gaps in the storyline, the plot line was a little fuzzy, stuff like that. To a degree, I agree with that, but I feel like this series is actually just good enough, just interesting enough that I'm willing to move forward with the series. So we will see. I don't really know. I couldn't really tell you if I'm gonna love it, but I do want to finish the series and see what happens. The second book ended on a heck of a cliffhanger, and I'm like ready to see what happens. The next release on July 6th is also an adult romance by Sonali Dev. It's called Incense and Sensibility. This is the third in the Rajes series. So I love Sonali Dev's writing. I find that the characterization and the plot, the way the characters grow together, like it's just very believable. It's very intriguing. I'm also learning about a culture. So this is basically Jane Austen meets an Indian immigrant family in California, and I think this one might take place in New York. So I'm just really interested in the next set of characters in this family finding love, and I just really enjoy the way that Dev approaches different aspects of personality and character and characterization, and maybe how she talks about that in a way that is thought-provoking but also very tactful. I just really like it. I like her and I love these books, and so I'm gonna keep on reading, right? The next book is a huge release, I think, for many people who've been reading young adult fantasy for a long time. It is Winterkeep by Kristen Kishore that comes out January 19th. Again, this might be already out by the time this post goes up, this video goes up. The Graceling series is a well-loved, well-known series in the world of young adult fantasy. It is probably one of the series that made me fall in love with the genre of young adult fantasy, period. Before Graceling and Sarah J. Maas's series, I didn't really find that I enjoyed young adult. It was a little too trivial or childish, or I didn't care, or there wasn't enough action. I just couldn't keep my interest in any of these books, and so I just never really got invested in any of them after a certain time. And reading these series made me realize that there are books, there are plots in this genre that will keep your interest and move you forward, and the pacing is magnificent. The Graceling series is one of those. I believe the Winterkeep new release follows the character in the final book whose name was Bitter Blue. I'm very excited for the story to continue on, and I feel like this book has so much expectation on it that I'm just worried about what will happen if it doesn't live up to the hype. I don't know. Like, I am honestly praying for this author and this book release because it's one of the first of the year. There's a lot of pressure on it, and I think people just need something really good to hang on to and to be nostalgic about. And I'm worried that this book might break hearts. I don't know. We'll see. But I do want to read it. I'm excited to get this one in the mail. Okay, 2/3 of the way done. Okay, y'all, if you have made it this far in my book list, I'm so proud of you, and you're magnificent, and thank you. So, let's keep going. Get my list in order here. Okay. The next book, I am a little worried that I might buy this book and not like it. This may come from the library, and this is Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. So the cover is gorgeous. This is YA fantasy. I have another book by Levenseller that I actually have not read yet, and I couldn't tell you why. I just, for some reason, I think it was a standalone, and at the time I wasn't interested in it, and now I just haven't gotten back to it. So I do want to do that, but we will just see. And also, sorry for the lighting. It is the afternoon, and it's just the sun is doing what it wants to do, and so I hope that's okay. Anyway, this caught my interest because for some reason I'm really into blacksmiths in fantasy. So this is about our character Ziva. She is a blacksmith, and she may be a bit of a recluse, and so she and her sister basically go on this journey to find someone who is worthy of wielding this sword that was created by Ziva under commission for a warlord, and they find that the warlord that commissioned it may not be worthy of wielding it. So very excited. I believe this is the first in a series. So I'm very interested, very excited. This will essentially be my first foray into her books. So let's see how that goes, I suppose. The next book has a gorgeous cover by an artist that I've followed for quite some time on Instagram. I'm very excited. I cannot remember the name of the account, but I will link it down below so you can check her out. She is amazing. But it's called The Ones We Were Meant to Find by Joan He. I believe that's how you say her last name. This is, I believe, a young adult mystery, if I'm correct, and books in this genre I typically don't like to know too much about because I find that it ruins the plotline for me. So it's two sisters, one is missing and one is trying to find this missing sister. I mean, it sounds absolutely amazing, and I am just so ready for it. The next book, releasing on July 20th, is Isn't It Bromantic? It is a continuation in the series of the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is one of those fluffy, fun adult romance novels that when I started reading this series, I just found like it was great escapism. It was just really fun, and to be honest, I'm a huge fan of happily ever afters. So if I can get one of those after the year we went through, I'm ready for that. So, and they always seem really, really fun. And I think Adams does a good job with dealing with toxic masculinity and how older generations like have to deal with that and have to work through that to save their marriages or create new relationships that are worth having. I don't think it's necessarily a perfect piece on how to deal with that. I don't think that's her intention, but she does have men dealing with that instead of being told by women they need to deal with that, and I feel like that's significant, so I really enjoy that. The next book by Roseanne Brown. So this one I'm getting in paperback, and so that's released on May 4th. This book has actually already been released in hardcover, and it's A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because the sequel comes out this year, and the cover is gorgeous, and I might get it in hardback, but for whatever reason, some of the fantasies, young adult fantasy that I like to collect, I typically go after the paperback a lot of times. I don't know why. It's just some are paperback, some are hardcover, and it just varies for me depending on what I want to do. But if this is really good, like I've seen tons of reviews that this was fantastic last year, I might grab the hardcover. So, I mean the hardcover of the sequel. So we'll see. I'm kind of being like flip-floppy here, but we will see. That comes out May 4th if anyone's interested in the paperback of that book. The next new release is Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. She came out with The King of Scars, which was the first book in this duology last year or the year before. I can't remember exactly now. But basically, this was huge nostalgia for me. I love Leigh Bardugo. I have her 9th House up here that I still need to read. That just came out at the wrong time for me, and so I haven't gotten to it, but I will. And so I'm really excited about the second book in the duology. I really like this character in the Grisha trilogy, so I do enjoy reading along about him and seeing kind of how he becomes a king and does it well. It honestly reminds me of the Queen's Thief series by Megan Wallen-Turner, and I think that's why I bought into it so much. So if you've ever read that, it's such an amazing series that I feel like any book that touches even a few qualities, it just feels like, oh, I gotta read it. Like, I just want to know. Next book, A Vow So Bold and Deadly, which is the third in the Cursebreaker series by Bridget Kemmerer. Very excited to see the conclusion. There was a lot of tension between the two main male characters in